right, looks like it's that time, and we are live. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Adobe Monday. Adobe Monday Live. I give it a new title every time. But welcome to the live stream here on Creative Cloud. We're going to be talking about 5 ways to make selections inside of Adobe Photoshop CC. And so with that in mind, if you are a Photoshop user, most of this will work for you, but if you're a CC user, all of it will work for you. So welcome. Thanks, Evil Cerise, for letting me or confirming that you guys can hear me and see me. All right, just bringing up a chat window here. Hey, Jim. Hey, Lisa. Hey, out there. Stephen and everyone else coming in. Welcome, 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 everyone. All right, there we go. Now I can see Craig. I can see Victoria. Awesome, everybody. I can see comments in both windows. This is great. And Natalie and everyone else. All right, so with that said, the key to success with Photoshop in many cases is being able to separate an image from, or part of an image from the rest of the image. Whether you're really going to separate it, meaning you're going to cut it out or not, but just being able to make a selection can make all the difference in the world when you're trying to adjust or change or recomposite or do something different to the image. So the better you are at selecting, the better you will be at Photoshop. The good news is that there are literally dozens, maybe tens of ways of selecting in Photoshop. I'm only going to show you 5 today with a couple moderations, but there are tons of ways to select in Photoshop, and the reason that there are so many ways is because every photo is different. So every photo might require a different way of selecting, or a not necessarily different, but a better technique at selecting. So there's really no wrong way to do a selection. It's just some ways are way faster and more efficient and better results than others. So that's really what it's all about. It's once you start learning all the tools and all the techniques for doing selections, you'll look at an image and say, if I want to select this part of the image, it's probably going to be better if I use A or B as opposed to C or D. C or D would still work, but C or D would take longer or wouldn't be as efficient or wouldn't be as good of a result. So with that said, all kinds of ways of doing selections. And of course, Sydney, I'm glad I introduced the quick select to you. I'm going to be doing that today, as a matter of fact, pretty soon, like first image. But yeah, so quick select is one of the ways Sydney just brought up. So with that said, let's pop over to my computer so you guys can see what I'm doing. I've got multiple images open. So there will be some that'll be easier, some that'll be harder, some that'll be very easy, some that will be not very easy. And ways to do selections. Okay, so for example, and let me get this out of the way first. People will say that, hey, that's cheating, the image is on a white background, that's easy. And I say to those people, of course it's easy. If I'm going to photograph someone and I'm going to photograph them with the idea in mind that I might want to cut them out at some point, yeah, I'm going to photograph them on a white or gray background, preferably gray actually. But if I want to do a selection of something that's difficult, maybe I didn't have the choice, I didn't photograph the image. Difficult is difficult. There's usually no magic solution to something that is hard. For example, a dark image on a very dark background. The computer can't distinguish it if you can barely distinguish it. So there is no lucky, sometimes you get lucky, but there is no always, if I just do this, everything I ever select will be easy. Some things are easy, some things are hard, some things are right in the middle. So with that said, let's jump in. I'm not going to select the entire image in this case. We're going to do that on another one. Let's say I was just focused on the hat. I want to do a quick selection of the hat, and that's going to be the first way, using the quick selection tool. So the quick select tool is located on your tool panel. And let's see if we can get this here. On the tool panel, and it usually shares the same space as the magic wand. I've customized my tool panel, which we've learned before. And I've separated it out because I use quick select all the time and I don't want to have to go digging for it. But there's quick select, and the way quick select works, it's like a brush. You paint it over the area you want to select, and then you can, of course, increase the brush size or increase the size of it. So that's a very, very tiny quick select tool. I want a bigger one. So I'm just going to hit my right bracket key on the US keyboard. Those are the keys next to the letter P. So I got my bigger brush now, and I can just go ahead and just start selecting, and it's like the magic wand, but it's better. So if you're used to the magic wand not being good, try quick select, because it's like the new and improved magic wand. And as you can see, it quickly went to the boundaries of the image. If I zoom in on that area now, you'll start to see where it went to the boundaries of the image and made a quick selection. So typically what I tell people to do before because a lot of times it's quick to miss something, before you commit to it and say, yeah, that's it, I'm going to now adjust the hat, or I'm going to do something to the hat, or I'm going to separate the hat, do what I call a visual walk around. In other words, those little animations of pixels going around, we call them the marching ants as a nickname. Follow the marching ants all the way around your image to make sure that you got it selected the way you want. Because a lot of times, especially on a person, you'll miss fingers, fingernails, eyelashes, things that are so close to the edge you thought they were selected at first glance, and they really weren't. So take a second to go around it and make sure you got everything you want. All right, so for example, I can see down here on the real close, zoom in on that, real close to that edge, see how it's not getting all of the hat? That's why we do that visual selection, so we can go in. Now, you can use the quick select tool even if it didn't get everything. It defaults to an add mode, so there's a little plus sign in it, which means I can always keep clicking and adding to my existing selection. So if there were edges that I missed, parts that I missed, of what it was I was really trying to select. So for example, down there, it really got, and if it goes too far, I'm going to show you how to fix that, which it just did. You can keep going. Oh, actually, and it corrected itself, so it's good. But if you go out too far, so let me do it myself. Let me go down here. Oops, I clicked too far. Well, obviously I could undo. So if I just undo it, that would undo it. But if I don't want to go that far. Go down here again. Let's say you didn't see it and it's too late to undo it. Just like plus sign is always adding to the selection, if you hold down your Option or Alt key, that is subtracting from the selection. So if you went out too far and didn't quite get what you wanted, I'm sorry, you got more than you wanted, let's put it that way, just hold down the Option or Alt key on your keyboard to tell it to, no, reverse that. Don't select every little piece there. Pull back and select less. All right, so now that we got that, again, I can do my quick round the hat. And that looks pretty good. Looks good up there. All right, so if I'm happy with my selection, now it's up to you to do whatever it is you made that selection for. So if you were going to adjust the hat, you can go ahead and just start adjusting it. So for example, if I wanted to darken the hat or lighten it, I could bring up levels. That was a Command L. And I can just start darkening or lightening that selection. So I used to teach my early Photoshop classes way back in the day, and I would always say, select to effect. So in other words, if you want to affect a part of the image, select it, and then you're affecting just that part of the image. I'm going to cancel out of this. And someone's asking, well, why not refine edge? Because we haven't got to that yet. So 5 ways. This is number 1. Stay tuned. All right, so anyway, another way to quickly see if you got it right or if you got what you wanted is to simply take what you've selected and what we call jump it to its own layer. So on the keyboard, on a Mac, that would be Command J. On a PC, that would be Control J. And look at what it did. It made a hat layer. Call it layer 1. I'm going to call it hat. So now I've got the hat separated on its own layer all by itself. So if I wanted to do anything with the hat, I've now duplicated it onto its own layer. I can make a new image from it, use just the hat, add it to a different background because it has no background now, save it as a ping file if I want to post it on social media or put it on something without a background. I've got the hat all by itself. So another way to make sure you got it all is to just jump into its own layer. And that way, if you missed anything, you're going to see it because there's nothing else there. All right, so that was using method number 1, the quick select tool. Quick select is just as the name implies, quick select, not perfect select. So quick select is usually good for things that have a relatively hard edge, like not good for hair, not good for soft edges, not good for fur, things like that. But something that has a hard edge, quick select will usually do a good job. Something that's highly contrasted, quick select will do a good job. So her hat is perfectly contrasted against the dark background. If it was a black hat on the black background, quick select would have a harder time, just like you would have a harder time seeing it. So it can only do what it can do. All right, next up. So that was method number 1. Method number 2. What is the shortcut keyboard to? Wait, now that I have a smaller keyboard, what is this shortcut on the keyboard to place text? Well, if you mean type text, it would be the letter T, and then click the return or enter key to lock it in. So I'm not sure if that's what you meant, but that's the answer based on what you typed. All right, so here's another method. If you have something that is all one color or very similar, this would be a perfect case for the magic wand. However, even with the magic wand, a selection like this can be more difficult than it appears. So for example, if I grab the magic wand tool, oh, this is going to be easy because it's all, pinkish, whatever that color is. And I click, and then I notice, oh, it didn't get the hair and the rest of her face because it's not connected. And it didn't get this little part of her neckline because it's not connected. So the magic wand will select based on what's connected. So, and of course there's a way around it. You can hold down the shift key and add to the selection. But depending on how many pieces there are, that could be cumbersome too. That could take more time. If I had 50 different disconnected things, shift clicking through them all would take more time. So there's a trick around that. Let me undo the one I just did. So let's say you just clicked and you got that first one. Go up to your select menu, and under under the select menu, it's just similar. So in other words, I told it what color I'm looking for. As long as that's the only color in the image or in the area, just select everything that's similar to that color, and I'm done. So just similar. Go get everything that's similar, whether it's connected or not, and just do it. And of course, if I jump that to its own layer, Command J or PC Control J, now I've got that selected all by itself, duplicate it. I can now, transparent, I can now do whatever I want to do with it. Okay, another way of selecting is using the marquees. So the elliptical tool, ellipse tool, and the rectangular marquee. Obviously this is round, so I probably want the ellipse tool, but sometimes that can be more difficult than you think. If you cannot easily determine the center point, like I'm guessing it's right about there, but there's no way to know for sure. If you can easily determine the center point, then what you can do is hold down your Option or Alt key and select from the center up. So I'm holding down the Option and Shift, and that was a fairly decent guess. Let's say right about there. Problem is, this shape isn't perfectly round because it could be moved over a little bit. The beauty of a selection is you can move it around, but I'm still missing like this little bit of piece over here and this little piece over here because it wasn't perfectly round. Now, you can combine selection tools. So if one tool doesn't cut it, you can go ahead and I'm glad, David, that the similar command made this worthwhile all by itself. But anyway, if you combine tools, like for example, I got 90% of it, 99% of it. I just need 2 more little pieces there, maybe subtract 1 little piece. I'm done with the ellipse tool. It did its job. I can go now select other tools to finish it. So for example, I could use the quick select again. I could hold, it's already got a plus sign on it, so I don't have to hold down anything, and I can just say, nope, get that little piece, finish, you're done, and hold down the Option or Alt key and subtract that little piece out. Actually, no, that belongs there. It's just very light. Okay, and that would be it. That would be how I'd select that soccer ball with a couple of clicks. You can also do the reverse sometimes. Here's the old way we used to do it all the time. We still do it this way sometimes. Sometimes it's easier to select the opposite. If you've got a difficult selection and the background is all one color, but all the intricate parts are different, then you can use the regular magic wand tool, and it has a tolerance setting. So it defaults to 32 if you've never changed it. And sometimes 32 is too high, sometimes 32 is not high enough, but it's got to default to something. So it defaults to 32. You click and you say, oh, it got all the background, but then it started selecting some of the ball, then that means 32 is too high. Now, one of the things I want to break you of, if you have this bad habit, people tend to, in every other program, when they want to deselect something, they click onto something else. So that is great, except for when you're in a selection tool like the magic wand. You click on something else, it's going to try and select it. So I just instinctively, if something's not working the way I think it should, or if something's selected and I don't want it selected anymore, Command D, Control D to do it. All right, so Kevin, you obviously know what you're doing. So yes, thanks for bringing those things up that I'm already going to be doing. Anyway, all right, so let's, I'm giving Kevin a hard time. Let's go ahead and just lower that tolerance. Let's go ahead and click now and see, just lowering the tolerance. And again, I just guessed at 15. Said, oh, okay, you don't want me to be as generous with selecting white, so therefore I will select less white, and therefore I got the perfect background. All right, so now that I got the perfect background, what I really wanted was the ball. I don't want the background. So there's a great command. We've used it for many, many years in Photoshop. Select inverse, which means tell it to select everything else it did not select, which is the ball. So 2 clicks. Once I set the tolerance, click one in the background, select inverse, done. Got the ball perfectly selected. Even the little grooves and the little parts that would have been harder to select another way. So once again, Command J, Control J, now that's on its own layer, and I can do anything else I want to do to it because now I've got a perfectly selected soccer ball. Okay, another method. That was method number 3. Method number 4. If you're selecting geometric shapes that have straight lines, like in this case, the pyramids, the cloudy background is kind of hard to select. The pyramids would be kind of hard to select, or not hard, but not one click. So sometimes it's easier to select based on the shape. There are 3 lasso tools. There's the regular lasso where you can just freehand lasso something. And that's not really good for selecting shapes, but it is good for making an irregular selection. That's what it's always been for, is making irregular selections. All right, Command D, Control D on Windows. Then there's the polygonal lasso. The polygonal lasso is perfect for a shape like this because it selects based on clicks. So I click from one spot to another. So I go down here on the bottom left of the pyramid and click. And I'm not holding down anything, I'm just moving the mouse up. See, that line is now attached to where I clicked. So all I gotta do is line it up with all the way up to where it's gonna change direction. So click there, changes direction there a little bit, changes direction there a little bit, and then go all the way down. And as you can see, eventually, if I only wanted the one pyramid, then I would cut down, but I want both pyramids, so I'm gonna cut up and over. Make sure I get the cap, and then down again until I see it change direction a little bit. And then all the way down, and it's a little bumpy on that side, but I'm okay with cutting some of that off. Right about there, there's a car way down there. And then I can come all the way over, maybe right there. The ground is not perfectly level. It is curving off. And then once you get back to your beginning point, you'll see a little circle pop out on the end of the lasso tool, letting you know you're about to close it off. And if you click, that will be your selection. So that is the polygonal lasso tool. And of course, you'd zoom in, you do a better job than I did, maybe a little closer, get some of those edges. But again, if you want to add to it, you can add to it with the other tools. Now, the regular lasso, I'm going to show you this because a lot of people never think to use it this way. I use the regular lasso tool a lot of times when I just want to add to an existing selection. I don't want to use it to make the selection because that would be frustrating. But sometimes I'll use it here. I'll show you. This is the perfect place to use it. I'll use it over here. See how that edge kind of pops out a little bit and I kind of cut through it. I didn't really select it. And now down here, I didn't cut into it enough. These are perfect examples of where the lasso would come in, especially if you have a tablet. So I could take the lasso tool and I can come up here. Now, if I click and start dragging, it's going to say, oh, forget about the selection you just made. Make a new selection based on the lasso. So I want to hold down the Shift key. Add to the selection. So if I come over here and I say, you know what? I wish I had got all of this part of it still. And then I just come around, add that to the selection. So a lot of times I will either use a mask to do this. We haven't talked about masking yet. Or I'll just use the lasso quickly to add pieces in, or hold down the Option or Alt key to subtract pieces out that I shouldn't have selected, like so. So you can use the other selection tools to fine tune, including the lasso, just by selecting the pieces. That was bad. Selecting the pieces that you missed the first time. And sometimes this might just, if it's a lot of it, I would just use a mask instead, because it's faster to paint with a brush than it is to circle things with the lasso tool. But you have another method now. You have another tip. Okay, so with that said, let's see, we used lassos. What's our next image? And of course, let's finish up the way we always do by putting it on its own layer. And now we have the pyramids on their own layer to do whatever it is we want to do. All right, next up, a selection that's not that easy. He's got hair. Damn him. He's got hair. All right, so he's got hair, and to make it matters even worse, he's on a background that's not that different from his shirt, from his hair. They're kind of all in that, blending into that same color family. So this is one of those things that is not as easy, but isn't that hard either. There's a way to do this. Okay, so someone said, why don't you just use Refine Edge? Someone said select and mask. So Refine Edge is the older way of selecting things based on hard and soft edges at the same time. So hair and not hair. That got replaced by default, I should say, using Select and Mask. Select and Mask has more options. Select and Mask can, Kevin, you must be horrible to go to movies with. Anyway, he's always spoiling the plot. Select and Mask has more options and just more features, and it will continue to evolve and get better. So eventually Refine Edge will probably be replaced, even though it's still hidden inside the program. I'll show you how to get to it if you really want. But Select and Mask is a way to make a selection based on what we see here. So the way you get to that is go to Select menu and come down to Select and Mask. When you come down to Select and Mask, that will bring up a whole new interface. Now, if you don't, what happened to my image? That usually means that one of the sliders isn't where it's supposed to be, because the image is there, but I've got the transparency all the way over on 100, which means show me what I've selected so far, which in this case is nothing. So I pull it all the way back over. Oh, there's my image. It was always there. It's just this toggles between showing you all of the image or what's selected. And since we haven't selected anything yet, that's why it brought up nothing. So if I pull it back over here, or even just where I can start to see the image, maybe right about there. This has quick select built in. So you start off with the quick select tool that's already built in the selected mask. And then you can start to click and drag, and you can start to see the selection it's going to make. And the reason you have the transparency is to show you what you're missing. So what you haven't selected yet. So I can go through and I can go in and say, oh my God, he's got all his hair. We haven't got to the hard part yet. That's the hard part, all that stuff in there. And again, that dragging of the transparency slider is to show you what you missed or got, in this case, too much of. I got too much of the old background behind his head. So I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key, say, nope, I don't want that. I just want his hair as best we can get it. All right, and maybe Option key. And this is where quick select starts to just not work, because I can add in more, but it's going to get some of the background. I can take off more, but it's going to start removing hair. It's not good for soft edges. Down here on the shirt, perfect. It's getting that edge just right. It's getting everything down here I want. Up here, quick select just doesn't do it. That's why we have other ways. So now we've got, I would say that I've included all the hair, but the problem is the hair is also including some of the background that was behind it. So that's where the selected mask features start to come in. That's why you've got all these controls over here on the right. That's why you've got more tools over here on the left, so that you can refine your selection better. So the second tool is the Refine Brush. This tool is designed for just what it says, refining the edge. And it has a plus sign in the middle of it that you're targeting what the old background used to be. So in other words, if you were to zoom in on this, you would want the X to touch where the background used to be first, and the brush to extend onto the subject. So in this case, I'd want something like, maybe not that big, maybe something like that. So that way I can paint around that edge, and it knows whatever the plus sign is touching, take that out of the surrounding circle. All right, so let's try that. All right. And maybe something like that. Okay, not bad. Now I can drag that slider over to see what I got. Getting there. Not perfect, but getting there. Okay, so now that's about as good of a job as the Refine Edge tool is going to do. Like, that brush is only going to do so much. So I can keep coming around here, and I'm going to get diminishing returns. Yeah, it's trying, but it's not calculating enough, because, like I said, the color of the background is really close to the color of the rest of the image. All right, so now what do we do next? That's what the other sliders and controls are for. One of my favorite ways to quickly do this is to just use a little bit of Shift Edge. In other words, Shift Edge is based on a percentage. I think it used to be a pixels, but it's percentage now. And I can go in and just drag it over a little bit to the left. You don't want to drag it over too much. But what that's doing is it's saying, I'm going to shift the edge in by whatever percentage you go. So if I go too far, now the edge is too hard. So it looks like I'm starting to cut it out with a pair of scissors. So I don't want to go over that far. I would say right about there is probably going to do it. All right, so now if you still want to experiment and see what you got, you can go in and say, well, let me see it on different backgrounds. That's another way. That's another reason I like this, because sometimes it's hard to tell on the checkerboard pattern what you really got or didn't get. So that's why you get all these different ways of selecting, or I'm sorry, viewing, so that you can see what it really looks like. So for example, let me see it on black. Okay, and I can see up here where I kind of missed a part of it. Let me see it on white. I can see right here it's still a little dirty in that area. I call it dirty. We're still leaving a little bit of the background. Let me see the mask itself. Yep, I can see the mask is just missing. It's still got too much over here and missing a big chunk of it up here. Let me see it on layers, which is what we're looking at. Let me see it as a red overlay. And let me see the marching ants, which are useless in this case. And of course, the onion skin. All right, so now I can sit here and continue working with it and smoothing it and trying it and whatever. But those two little things that, like the top of his head and the hair down here, are easier to fix with a mask. It's just easier to just go ahead and let this go. And I got the bulk of it done now and just fine tune it with the mask. So I'm going to go in and say the output normally defaults to just the selection, which I don't like. I'm going to change it to new layer with mask. That way I get a brand new layer with this image cut out and a mask that I can edit and make changes to. So let's go ahead and say new layer with mask. And there it is cut out. So here it is. The old one is still there with the old background. The new one is there with no background. So even if you wanted to drop in a new background, let's try that. Oh, here, drag this one in. The one we just saw a minute ago. All right. And now we'll go ahead and pull that down. We can start to see what he would look like on that background. We can also see that big chunk of his hair missing. So let's go ahead and fix it now. So like I said, it's going to add it in with a mask. That mask is already there waiting for me. And that mask remembers everything that was in the original image. So all I have to do is go to that mask, hit the letter B to get a paintbrush, and just paint back in that missing part of his head where I cut in too much. If I paint in too much, I can either undo it and start it again, or I think his hair is just a weird shape up here, because if I go too far, I'm going to start getting the background. Or if I really bring in too much, maybe I want to see what's all there, then I can just switch the color and start painting with black to remove that one little area right there. Because that really is the shape of his hair. So he's got a different problem. All right. So same thing down here where it's kind of messy. I can say, you know what? Let's just go ahead and finish hiding the rest of that stray hair. It's not doing me any justice anyway. And of course, if I use a bigger brush, I can just go ahead and clean up the dirtiness that I was talking about, that previous mask. Now again, also it depends on what you're going to use it for. If you're going to composite it onto something, a lot of this stuff you won't even see on the new image. But if you do, zoom in, take your time, and just clean up that last little bit. This is getting difficult because it's the same color as the old background. So if I go in here and start hiding, wrong way, hiding some of that, that's going to take time to kind of cut all that out, but it can be done. Just clean that up just a little bit. And we have, that I might go back in and try it a different way. All right. Now, the algorithm for selecting mask is different from Refine Edge. So if you like the results you were getting with Refine Edge better, let's go back and try it. So let's go back in. Let's turn off our new layers. Let's go back to where we started. That's where we started. The way you get to Refine Edge is like I said, it's still there, but it's hidden inside the application. Under your select menu, you're only going to see selected mask. You won't ever know that Refine Edge is still there. So how do you get to Refine Edge? With Refine Edge, before selecting mask, you always had to make a selection first. So that still applies. I would still go in, use my quick select tool, and make whatever. You don't have to use quick select, but you have to make a selection first. Because selecting mask has quick select built in, but Refine Edge didn't. So make your selection first. Again, hair is going to be an issue, but do the best you can. Make your selection first. Don't miss the ear. All right. Once you make your selection, your initial selection, to get it started, the way you get to selected mask, lose that hair again. The way you get to selected mask, Refine Edge, hold down the Shift key. That is the magic to get to Refine Edge. hold down the Shift key once you've made a selection. Then when you go to the select menu, you still won't see it. It still says select and mask. But when you hold down the Shift key and choose select and mask, it brings up the old refine edge. So this is you don't have that big window anymore. You don't have select and mask. This is the old method using refine edge. It has a refine brush as well, refine radius tool. And let's see how it performs on this image. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not, sometimes they're the same. So in this case, it might be a little better. Of course, I can go back here. Move the window out of my way. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm just painting on that color. I missed a lot of his hair there. Painting on that color to try and cut or bring it back in. Still not great because of the color. And like I said, this wasn't an easy image to do. So I did this one on purpose. But it's there. So you got less options because this is the older tool. So I still want new layer with a mask. I can still do Shift Edge, just pull it in a little bit. You can still do Smart Radius. Smart Radius, that looks pretty good. And then output new layer with a mask. And there's our new layer with a mask. So we've got we'll call this one Refine Edge. And we'll call this one Select and Mask. Both are there. Both have a mask. I can bring up the background and see which one I like better. Yeah, I like the Refine Edge one is cleaner in this case because I spent more time cleaning that part of it up. But if I were just, again, wanting to use one of these right now, I'd use this result. I'd start here. I still have a mask on either one to clean up, but that's the one I would start with. All right, next up, last but not least, we have this guy. And like I said, some of this is in the older versions of Photoshop, like Refine Edge is in the older version of Photoshop, but this new thing I'm going to show you is only in CC. So to get to just, again, another way of doing a selection, you'll notice in this particular case, we've got the subject and there's a shallow depth of field. The background is out of focus. Photoshop can see that. So you can actually use, this is our fifth and last way to do this, you can actually go up to the select menu and choose focus area. So focus area does just that. It says, okay, I'm going to see what's in focus and make a selection based on that. Not good results the first time. Thankfully, there's an in focus range because, again, it's just guessing. It's guessing at what's the sharpest part of the image. That's what's in focus, even though there's still some other parts of the image that you probably want. So just drag the slider, and it'll recalculate every time you drag it. Drag it a little bit more. Recalculating, drag it a little bit more. If you take it all the way over, I know what you're thinking. Why don't you just take it all the way over? Because if I take it all the way over, then it's going to bring back everything. So we can't take it all the way over. I'd say probably right about there is going to do it. All right, that was easy. So output to a new selection or just a new layer with a mask. And away we go. So we got him, and again, we can see what he looks like on a different background. We've been using this one. Let's use it again. Shift key, and enter, and pull it down, and there he is. So this one, oh, shoot, I forgot something. Hold on. Forgot to show you something. Go back. Let's go back to select. I was going to show you one more thing, and I forgot to do it. Select focus area. Same thing, drag it over to about, I think it was 661. I took for granted something. Let's see what 641 does. Oh, a little bit more, 661. There we go. Okay. It looks good, but it's really, we just saw the hair, still hair, not good, because it's harder for the program to determine what individual strands of hair are in focus or not. So luckily, this is a selection that counts for selected mask. So if I choose selected mask, it will take me over to the selected mask workflow where I can go in and keep working on this. So I can, for example, use the refine radius tool on his hair and hopefully get a better result. And I can see I need to clean it up here. Smaller brush, maybe. Yeah, there we go. We'll cut into that ear. Good, good. Good, good, good. Oh yeah, let's just do, why don't we do smart radius here? Smart radius is designed to fix the areas that should be sharp and distinguish them from the areas that should be soft. So you can fix it like, I don't have to go around, hopefully I wouldn't have to go around this entire edge if smart radius did its job. Oh, went too far. I was looking at you guys. Try that one more time. Right about there is good. Okay, that's a better cutout than what we just had. Let me see what his hair looks like on a different color. We'll see what the mask looks like. So I'd have to adjust the mask right there and right there, but otherwise the hair looks pretty good. Fairly good. All right. So same thing, we're going to output this with, and we can actually do a little bit of shift edge, just a small percentage. All right, we're going to go ahead and say new layer with mask. And again, because we have that mask, we can go in with a paintbrush, bigger brush, and hide those two little things on the edge there. All right, and now if we bring that pyramid back in, it should be a little bit better. There we go, that's better. Still a little cleanup around that ear, a little bit of cleanup there, but you get the idea. Much better job on the hair, much better job all the way around. And those are 5 ways to do a selection in Photoshop. Of the tens or dozens of ways to do selections, lots of ways to do selections. This was only 5 with a few bonus tips thrown in here and there. All right. Make sure I didn't miss any urgent questions that I didn't see earlier. Let's check here. All right. Yeah, hair is always difficult depending on the background. I agree. Yes, Dave Clayton. Sorry, not soccer, football. All right. Everyone's here to give me a hard time today. And yes, Evil Cerise, thanks for letting us know that if you tune in tomorrow, I believe adobelive.com, and you speak German, they're doing a 3-day German stream on UX UI design. So kind of the same one that was done last week in San Francisco is now being done in Germany. So with that said, everybody, thanks for watching. Glad you enjoyed this. Tomorrow I'll be streaming on InDesign and Publish Online. I'm doing a whole Publish Online week with InDesign. I'm streaming about it tomorrow on the InDesign Facebook page, same time, 1 p.m. Pacific time, at facebook.com/InDesign. And hopefully you got some tips out of making selections in Photoshop. It's never 100% science. It's never a thing that you do the same thing all the time and it works on every single image. Every image is a little different, so it will depend on what you're trying to select. but don't be afraid to try and make selections. You've got a multitude of ways to do it. You've got a multitude of tools to use, and you can use them in combination with each other. So if you didn't get something just right, use a mask to tweak it or fix it. Or if one tool didn't quite get the selection you wanted, add another tool in to finish off that selection. So cheers, everybody. Take care. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.